All right, and I'm introducing Clark Bartram. He's a fitness expert. He's been doing it for over 30 years. Former military. I just found that out today. Actually, former Marine, which is pretty cool. I didn't realize that you were a former Marine. But little background. I mean, you've been a motivational speaker, award-winning author, fitness model. Been on fitness, like a health and fitness magazine covers. You've been the TV host of American Health and Fitness, speaker for multiple health and nutrition line supplements, and just as of recent, you've been what I call a cancer warrior, basically an advocate for folks battling cancer. So I just found that fascinating. So I did fly you up today, and I thought that that was great. I've been since high school, like you said, I've been following you, and just really wanted to have you on the podcast, talk about nutrition and people over 50, men over 50. I know that's kind of your main focus now, and just wanted to have a good conversation with you. You have breadth of knowledge about that. I did read some of your books, and I've actually read volume one, which was called
Where Your Mind Goes, You Go.
Where Your Mind Goes, You Go.
Yeah.
And essentially, it starts out by talking about don't drink the poison. And so, what do you mean by that? Can you just expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for bringing me up here today. That was really kind of you to put me on an airplane and say, hey, I want you in the room. There's something about being in the room with people as opposed to doing it over Zoom. The energy is different. But Don't Drink the Poison in that book, Where Your Mind Goes, You Go, is really about how when we get involved in other people's stuff, we consume energy that isn't conducive to our best life.
Right.
And oftentimes, we're just drinking the poison of other people's crap that we don't need to. We don't need to be engaged in things that aren't going to give us the outcome that we want. So that book, honestly, was birthed out of one of the most darkest moments of my life. I was on an airplane, actually, flying home from Tampa, where I was on Home Shopping Network. Just made a bunch of money selling a fitness product that I had, and had what I now know was a panic attack on the airplane. And got home and didn't really want to get on any sort of medication for it. So I just dove into the mind and realized that I got myself into that. I could get myself out with the way I was thinking. And, the whole don't drink the poison thing is just a part of the process of how I unwound from that really dark place in my life that was scary, but it created a best-selling book.
On that, in that chapter, you talk about switching up it a little bit. You talk about forgiving people and forgiveness, and avoiding resentment and self-forgiveness, which I thought was extremely important. What are your thoughts on that, and how important is that to not cause or have resentment towards people? Because you can take that into your life, and it's just you can't get rid of it. It's just like this black cloud you can't get rid of.
Yeah. Well, on the drive over here, you had kind of revealed to me a little bit of your past. And there are people in your life that probably hurt you, like I've had those people in my life, some of them family members at certain points, people who are supposed to love us and protect us and all that sort of thing. But if you hang on to that bitterness, the only thing it's going to do is hurt you. And that's where that's the drinking of the poison, where if you hang on to that, you're the one that's getting sick. And when you release that person from that moment in time where they hurt you, you are taking a layer of pain and pressure and all of these things that are not serving your best interest off. And everybody has a story, right? Everyone has a reason to be hurt. But the people that hang on to it and don't forgive are the ones that are getting poisoned by that emotion that they refuse. Like, that's the word. They refuse to let go of it. And that came to me one day when there was a man in my life. It was one of my mom's boyfriends, Big Ron, who he was a great guy until he drank. And then when he drank, he became very violent. So he would give us the toys. It's now referred to as love bombing. He'd buy us the toys and the motorcycles and the bikes and all of that. But the minute he got drunk, he would beat us up, beat up my mom and all that sort of thing. And it was after I wrote Where Your Mind Goes, You Go, I knew I needed to release him by forgiving him. So I asked my mom, I said, Mom, do you have Big Ron's phone number? I called her. She's in Ohio. And she goes, yeah, why? I just happened to get it just randomly. I don't know how I got it. I said, I know how you did and why you did. I needed it. So I called this number, and basically this man raised me, and I said, hey, I'm looking for Ron. He goes, you found him. And we started to talk, and I said, this is Clark. He's like, hey, son. And I had found out that he was dying at the time from cancer, from Agent Orange that he got in Vietnam, which is a very traumatic experience, which may have been the reason he did what he did to us, right?
Right.
So after a long conversation, I said, I just want to let you know that I forgive you. I forgive you for everything that you did, and all of what you did helped mold me to be the person I am. So I chose to look at it in a positive light, but I also released him for his good so he could move on to the next phase of life, whatever that is, when he was dying. So I learned early to let people go when it, when they hurt you and do things.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not always easy. I'm not sitting here saying it's easy, but it's something that we should do if we want to live our best life.
I found that out too. It's like trying to live with resentment or hatred or anything like that. It precludes you from stepping forward. Basically, you're just kind of caught up in the past. And so it's just really difficult to even see in the future because you just have this kind of weight on your shoulders.
Yeah. Resentment is the worst emotion that any human could have.
Right.
It's damaging. That's the poison, is resentment.
So I went on in the book and I started to read, and I said, there's a couple chapters in it you talk about inspiring quotes. And one of the quotes that I really liked was, what you tend to think about, you tend to dwell upon, and it actually occurs, right? So you think I'm going to jump down this hill, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to, whatever you think you're going to do, it actually tends to manifest itself. And so I just kind of wanted to get your take on that as well, manifesting your life and manifesting things that are good in your life, instead of, again, going back to kind of dwelling on that past and manifesting that actually, So what are your thoughts on that?
So if I were to create an analogy of that in fitness, or like if you're riding a mountain bike on a trail, where your head goes, your body follows.
Right.
So if I'm looking off the edge of the mountain while I'm trying to go straight down this trail that is very narrow, and there's danger on the left and danger on the right, the minute I take my eye off that path and start focusing on what's down that hill, eventually the bike is going to veer off and go down that hill, and damage can happen. The same thing happens emotionally, spiritually, relationally, or whatever. If we focus on the negative part of our marriage, or the negative part of our business, or the negative part of a relationship with somebody else, that's going to be the outcome that we get back, because that's where all of our energy is focused on.
Right.
So what you're putting out there is the exact same thing you're going to get back. I was talking about energy the other day and vibrations, right? We hear about this, and that's real stuff. You don't get along with people because you're not on the same vibrational plane. It's just the energy is just not matching. So if your energy is choosing to be below the line, this is what I always tell my wife. I'm like, look, let's stay above this line.
That's great.
The minute we start going below this line, we know the conversation's not headed in the right direction.
I call it the 80-20 rule. Like I can focus on the 20% that's bad with my wife, or I can focus on the 80% that's really good about
the Pareto principle applies to everything.
Yeah. And so I found out that, everyone has that annoying 20%, but everyone does. But if you focus on that 20% and just negative,
it becomes 100% if you focus on the 20%, right? Because that's all you're focused on. Now, their whole existence is that, because you refuse to look at the other great features and attributes that this person has.
You talk about the mind, spirit, and body connection, which I find extremely important. I think those three connections are, having your mind right, having your spirit right, and having your, your body right. All these three things working together. Talk a little bit about that, and why is that so important to have that wheel, let's say, running correctly, flying correctly, moving correctly. Because those three things to me is, if you don't have those three things, it's kind of a clunky.
Yeah. Well, you have them, and it's impossible to separate them out. So I coach men over 50, to what you said earlier. And when I coach these men, it's seldom that when I'm doing the initial consultation with them that I'll talk about the treadmill or eating a low carb diet. I dig into the other parts of that man, because it's easy to Google how much cardio to do and what diet to do and all that sort of stuff. They're not coming to me for that. That's why my program is called the Maximize Man Elite Program, because I deal with the whole man. It's impossible to separate out his integrity from his time in the gym, from the way he treats his wife to the way he treats his business and all of that sort of stuff. So I have 5 principles that I teach: mindset, meals, movement, community, and integrity. All of those encompass the entire person.
Repeat that again.
Mindset, meals, movement, community, and integrity. And this is how I coach my guys with all of that included. So by the time I'm done doing an initial hour consultation with whoever it is that hired me to coach them, they're like, well, what about the cardio and all of that? What about the weightlifting? My response is, we'll get to that, but what I just discovered about you is more important. Like, you're lacking in confidence, which is a direct result of what you told me earlier in the conversation. I have this ability to really kind of hear between the lines and pull out things and repeat them back and ask them, is this true or not? And we uncover things that are just layered and layered and layered on top of them over the years, that if we start unlayering them, then we release the part of them that is able to be consistent in the gym and able to be better to their wife and not focus on the 20% and start seeing some of the 80. I've been guilty of that.
Right.
Like, I've seen my wife as just the negative part and all of that. And I had to work hard at it. And that's the beauty of being a coach, is I lead by example. I'm fit. I expect my guys to be fit. I treat my wife with respect. I expect my guys to do the same thing. So that goes on and on. That's why, again, Maximize Men Elite is what we are. And my guys love it. Not perfect and not toxic or whatever the world's trying to say. We're men who understand the bigger picture, and that makes fitness so much easier, man.
When you talk about these layers that men have, I have them myself, and you try to dig through those layers, just the self-talk sometimes that I try to give myself is so important. Like, I call it you have the critic or the advocate with you today in the car, basically on the side, in the passenger seat. And so, in your opinion, what do you think is some of the layers that men 50, like, because they're, these layers are thick now. How do you get through those layers? And what is the first layer that you try to tackle?
Yeah, the mindset piece is the first layer that I tackle. And that's why it's the first of the 5 principles, because nothing else matters. What I tell them to eat, what I tell them to exercise, and all that sort of stuff, until the mind is set to do these things.
Right.
And your comment about self-talk is important. I often picture Tiger Woods standing over a putt that will make him the champion or not. Is he saying, you're going to miss this putt, you suck, you'll never make it? No, the self-talk that he's having in that moment, and I guarantee you that he and every other athlete in a similar position, a kicker going to kick the winning field goal in a stadium with wind blowing, is not saying this wind is going to blow the kick away. He's saying, I know exactly how to do this because I practiced it over and over again, and I'm the best. I talk to myself. Terrell Owens, I love the quote, I love me some me, believe it. I say that to myself every day. I love that quote. And people who don't get it, don't get it.
Well, I'll be honest. I did it this morning for this podcast, because you have to self-talk. You have to be motivated. You have to be positive. You have to feel like you belong in the room. And sometimes, we talked about this on the drive here. It's like, yeah, I to the man game a little late, and my self-confidence was a little low, but you have to figure out that you can work through that, and you have to be kind to yourself. And if you're not kind to yourself, nothing else kind of falls into place. That could be health. That, it just falls down the line where it just doesn't fall into a good rhythm for you, right? So
absolutely, man.
Talk about the why. Why is the why so important? You talk about this in your book, and I think for me personally, if the why isn't big enough or it's not strong enough, you're not going to change. You're just not. And I found out in my personal life that people will quit before they even try the why, or they won't even go to the why and figure out what that is, because they don't want to dig deep enough into the mental portion.
Yeah, and you have to go deep. I've oddly enough been seeing a few influencers lately talking about the why not being important. And, they had some explanation as to why they thought it wasn't. But I disagree, at least for me, because it's important to have a reason to do the things that we do. Getting up in the morning and going to the gym consistently is not easy. Eating the right things is not easy. Going through a cancer diagnosis is not easy. And my why is because I have this body. Like I've been given this gift of life that I'm responsible for. So what I suggest to people, and what a lot of great people who I've listened to suggest, is really, to your point, digging deep and going layer after layer. Why do you want to lose weight? Well, I want to look better. Why do you want to look better? Because I don't feel good. Well, why don't you feel good? Well, because I know that my wife doesn't really think I'm attractive. Well, why doesn't your wife think you're attractive? Or why do you think your wife? Well, I saw her on the internet kind of looking at another guy, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now we're getting somewhere. So the why then becomes more sticky than wanting to look good for a class reunion or some superficial thing like that. Confidence is a big thing with men that they're lacking too.
Do you find that the why can be sometimes it could be a bad diagnosis, basically a health problem, or
Yeah, I got one.
yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean? It's like people don't change unless there's something that drives them to change, and sometimes it's a health problem, and they won't change until they
Hurt
have
bad enough.
yeah, until it hurts bad enough,
Yeah.
and so I found that just personally in my own experiences, I've had a friend that basically, has a problem, but he didn't change his life until he was diagnosed with that problem. So I just wanted to get your take on that as well. It's like, are those some of the things that men?
Well, yeah, that's a great way to make it happen, because if you don't change then, you're really stupid. You just have no desire to live a better life.
And I've seen that too. I mean, on that point where people, hey, if you don't change, you're going to die, basically.
Yeah.
And people still don't change. You're smoking too much, right? And people continue to smoke. Well, I have lung cancer, but they still smoke,
Yeah, well, addiction's a real thing, and giving up is a real thing, and not caring is a real thing. There's a multitude of reasons, right? Who knows what a person is going through? I'm not any expert on any of this. I just know what I apply to my life and what I've seen work in the guys that I coach who come to me and say, hey, what do I do? Because the reality is no one has it figured out. And when we're vulnerable and open up and see another man, a lot of men come to the man game late and don't grow up for a long time. A lot of men put themselves on the back burner because they're building businesses and taking care of families and doing things like that, which is all great stuff. But eventually there comes this point of diminishing returns where you have to face the reality of, like, being overweight is as bad as a cancer diagnosis. Because if you don't do something about it, it's going to eventually take you over and cause something. Maybe it's not a direct reason that you have issues, but it's indirectly causing several things which could end your life.
I like this portion of your book. It talks about humans like immediate gratification. So can you tell us a little bit difference between instant gratification and delayed gratification?
Well, fitness is the perfect example of that, because we have been sold by people, you can do this in 6 short weeks or 5 minutes a day. While 6 weeks is a great start and some people can get great results, and 5 minutes of just conscious breathing and good thoughts can absolutely change your life. All of those have a place in the process of growth and change, but nothing is going to happen instantly. We were talking about business on the way up here. I am in the business and I'm trying to figure things out, and I need to be patient and understand that where I'm at is exactly where I need to be. There was a great quote that I heard. It was a meme on one of my coaching groups forums. It said, be grateful for this moment in your life, because this moment is your life. So looking forward to getting a result, whether it's in your business or fitness, is overstepping this moment in time. And if you maximize this moment in time, the results will eventually come. The results are going to come right now, because you've shifted your mindset from looking off into the future, hoping that whatever you're trying to achieve is going to give you the satisfaction of accomplishing that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We got to back it up. Like, literally, this is all that exists in our life.
I try to live in the moment. I really do, because even today, having you on the podcast, it's like, this is great, right?
Yeah.
And enjoying the moment, enjoying the time with you. Um, what's the impact of social media? You said you had a 23-year-old son, and
And he's
the
29.
29.
Yeah.
I apologize.
No worries.
29. And what is the impact since, we didn't grow up with social media as it is today,
No.
but how do you see that impacting him and the instant gratification and these things that, instant money, instant fame, instant great body, instant this, instant that? How do you teach him not to have that instant gratification and more of a delayed gratification?
Yeah, I was watching Gary Vee. I was telling you this on the way over. I was watching Gary Vee, and he was talking about how today, because of social media, guys like Mark Zuckerberg becoming a billionaire and people in the dot-com phase and all of these people doing some sort of software play where they make a lot of money. Those are rare. Those are the 1% of people, and it doesn't happen that quickly. So seeing all of these people online, some of them faking the outcome and not really owning the car or having the trip that they pretend that they're on. AI can make photos and make people look better than they actually are. But my son, for example, because you brought that up, I constantly have to talk to him. One of the jobs that he does is he trades in the morning. And he knows that it's possible to make a ton of money trading because he's watching other people who've been doing it a lot longer than him making a lot of money.
Right.
And I have to constantly remind him of where he's at in the journey. You're still in the learning phase. This is a complicated business that you're getting in. A lot of people make a lot of money. A lot of people lose a lot of money. You have to manage your emotions and understand that over time, layer by layer, you're going to learn how to become more patient. You're going to learn the psychology of trading, which is probably the biggest part of it, because you already know the candlesticks and all of these things in vernacular that they use, and you understand how to apply it. But there's a psychology with it. And the biggest part of the psychology is understanding that this takes time.
I think kids today think that 5 years is all you need or 2 years is all you need to become an expert in something. It's taken you over 30 years to become a fitness expert, and you're still learning, which I find fascinating.
And I'm not an expert. I'm an enthusiast. I'm someone who really loves what I do, and I'm great at what I do. I say I'm the best at what I do, but there's so many more people who know way more than what I know.
Yeah. Talk about how important it is to have good people around you, good, solid people. People that are better than you in a sense, or you're striving to be around folks that are better in business, better in, fitness. And I read in your book that you try to meet 5 people a day. And you were telling me on the plane that you actually were trying to meet someone next to you. And
Shout out to Andrew on the plane. He's getting ready to have a baby here in the next month. So,
How important is that to you?
I live by that. I love that. So again, my 5 principles: mindset, meals, movement, community, and integrity. So meeting Andrew on the plane today and hearing about his wife, Kate, and knowing that he's got a son on the way, Willem, having that conversation this morning, first thing, got me ready to be here because I owe it to you, like you said earlier, to be my best here right now. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't show up here thinking that, oh, Clark Bartram's cool. This guy flew him up to do this. No, I got my mindset. And part of that is by engaging in intelligent, thoughtful conversation about things that I don't know about and really being interested in what's going on, esteeming other people above yourself, being surrounded by like-minded people. That's why my coaching program is so successful, not financially for me necessarily, but in the results that are delivered to the guys that come to me for the help that they say they want. So what I tell guys when they come into my program, they say, well, I don't need a WhatsApp group. I don't need to be in a community. I push back hard because I see the benefit. So it's like this. When an NFL guy retires from the NFL, it's not getting hit that he misses so much. It's the locker room. What is the locker room? It's a community of like-minded people who are there causing every single person in that room to raise up their level of performance,
to lift each other up,
their level of expectation for themselves, their consideration of the guy next to them that they're responsible for in, a small regard. So
I love that analogy because it is true. I mean, when you're in a sports atmosphere and you're around guys that are trying to achieve the same thing. It's really just that group of guys that are elevating you. Um, Talk about attitude. I think that's just so important about having a good attitude. And I love this in your book. You talk about you were talking to a bunch of military, or you went to you were about to have a speech, or you, you were about to do a speech actually at a military base, and you
Mhm.
came across this.
Yeah.
It's called
Yeah.
Camels versus Horses.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I didn't introduce that right.
No, that's
but
totally fine.
but talk about that.
Yeah.
Talk about the camels versus horses and just having a good attitude.
So the first thing I'll mention with attitude is I flew here on a plane, right? And the attitude of the plane is what gets us here. So if the attitude of the plane, if the nose was pointed down, we wouldn't have made it here. The attitude of the plane needs to be up
Right.
and create a trajectory to get me from point A to point B. So if your attitude is not right, you need to kind of compare it to that, right? To give yourself a visual. But I'll never forget the day. It was in Barstow. And I went to go speak there, and we were walking around. We saw this museum, and we were reading about camels. And my kids were young. My daughter Taylor's 32 now. Mitch's 28 or 29. I think he's 28 actually. But they were little, and I started reading this story about how the Army had used camels in the place of horses because the camels could go further through the desert. They could go in the snow. They could carry heavier weight. They didn't need water as much. They were just way more sturdy than the horses were. But they didn't use the camels because they spit, they were nasty, they were mean. In other words, their attitude was horrible.
Right.
So they were a superior tool for the Army, but the Army chose the horses because the attitude of the horse was better. So with respect to us as humans, I don't want to be around a person with a horrible attitude, nose down, thinking they're better than someone else, acting in certain ways, overlooking people and things like that. And that goes back to the energy thing and the vibration, right? I don't resonate with that sort of people. I'm not going to disrespect them. I'm just going to move on. And that happens online a lot. People are ugly. And here's what I'll say about that with regards to attitude. We all have bad days. So when a guy trolls me online and says some stupid stuff about me, I'll give him an opportunity to talk to me on the phone. And if they have the nerve to call me, and if they're an actual man, if they've stepped into manhood yet, they'll call me and they'll say, you know what, bro? I was having a bad day. And I'm like, fine, it's okay, done. We're friends now. So there have been several guys that have trolled me and their attitude was bad on a certain day, but given an opportunity, we can all shift and change our attitude no differently than the plane would. If it's off course, it adjusts the attitude and gets back on course.
Right. It's I love that analogy that you had in that book. It meant a lot to think about just what a camel versus horse, because you're right. They took less water, they walked a lot further. But if you don't have a good attitude in life, you're not going very far at all. Put that in perspective. Basically, just because you have a bad morning or a bad day doesn't mean you have a bad life. And I think that this kind of works into that, where your attitude plays into that, right? So I can have a bad morning. My wife and I get into a fight, or, you get a flat tire. But a lot of people perceive that as having a bad life or having a bad week, but they don't put that in perspective.
Yeah. So there's this old saying of, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, right? That's complete and absolute BS. So what I do is, if I wake up and I don't feel as good as I maybe have felt on another day, I give myself a finite amount of time to be what I refer to as a bitch ass dude. If it's 6 a.m. and I'm feeling like I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, I'm like, okay, you got 30 minutes to be in your bitch ass dude attitude.
Your funk.
Yeah. Right. And when it hits 6:30, you're done. You're moving on. You're getting to the now. You're getting in the present, because typically we're projecting out beyond. We're thinking about a deal that didn't happen. We're doing something that isn't currently in the moment. And the best way that I can describe that is, when I got my cancer diagnosis, it was like instantly, I'm like, I'm done. I literally, no BS, didn't have a bad moment. I went from here on that line that I talked about. I'm like, let's go. Let's go. I'm doing this.
Right.
It's an opportunity. It's, whatever happens, whatever the outcome is, whatever time I am doing it for, I'm going to be a badass doing it, and I'm going to have fun doing it. And I'm going to encourage a lot of guys along the way.
That's what I find fascinating about you, and what I find so encouraging is that you didn't take that that diagnosis and you didn't crawl into a hole. You actually took it and elevated yourself, and now are helping the masses, helping men over 50. And there's a lot of them out there with that cancer diagnosis.
Bro, I mean, it's like your reticular activating system goes into full effect because, you buy a gray Tesla, all of a sudden you see gray Teslas everywhere, right? And you get cancer, all of a sudden that's all you hear about. And you realize that there are so many men out there that are overlooking and like me, going, this can't happen to me. I'm Clark Bartram. Look at me. I'm fit. I'm ripped. I'm 60. I'm this and that and the other thing. Well, cancer is no respecter of persons. And I am here in this position, and it really comes back to attitude. That's where attitude is so important. If I would have instantly lowered my energy and went around and cried with my wife, and we were like planning for my demise, what good would I be to anybody, dude? You know what I mean? It would be such a waste of time.
Yeah.
My daughter the other day, it was funny. She goes like, you like having cancer, don't you? I'm like, yes. And I've lost friends over this. I lost a friend because one of my reels had the thumbnail. It said, cancer is a blessing for me. Like, not for like, man, don't get me wrong. I understand what this is all about. But for me, my life,
it's an opportunity to help people.
Bro, it's leveled me up like on a level that you don't even understand. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what else? How else can I respond to that thing? I don't want it,
Right.
but I got it. So what am I going to do with it?
Right.
Probably got you off your
No. Fitness and fun. I really wanted to focus in on the fitness portion because I know that's, where your bread and butter is, but I really love you talking about the cancer diagnosis and being so open about it.
Yeah, man.
I just, as I get older, I find folks my age, as I'm turning 50, they're okay with the dad bod. Most men are okay with that dad bod, the big belly. Well, I have kids. I'm turning 50. I've kind of made it in life. I've got money. Now who cares? I'm going to drink. I'm going to smoke. It doesn't really matter. But how important it is to change that mindset, and why is that okay with men around 50 years old? Why do we do this to ourselves?
Yeah. Well, there's a difference between a dad bod and drinking and smoking and going down that path, right? It's two separate things. So let me give you another meme that I saw. Patrick Mahomes with his shirt off with a dad bod. There's no one that will argue whether or not that dad bod is the most athletic person on the planet and competes at the highest possible level. So you don't need to be ripped in order to be functioning, highly functioning. That's how I look at people. Are you a highly functioning human? So right now, and I use this example all the time, I love it. All of the guys next door here, us in this room, all of a sudden we look in that parking lot and there are zombies coming in everywhere. I promise you, I am a highly functioning human, and I will not get touched by one of those zombies unless I decide to fight them. I'm jumping fences, I'm sprinting, I'm throwing rocks, I'm accurate, I'm nimble, I'm all of what I need to be at age 60 when other guys around might not be able to perform at the level I perform. So that's what I look at more than I look at the aesthetic part. Because again, Patrick Mahomes is a great example. No abs on his body anywhere. So that's what they would consider a dad bod. Now, with regards to why guys do that at 50, I kind of alluded to it earlier where I said, life, right? You're focused on your business. You told me you work 7 days a week. You do great at what you do. You're invested in it completely. Your customers, shout out to you and your business, are going to get the best possible service because you are focused on that. And because you're so focused on that, maybe the gym time suffers a little bit. Maybe eating right suffers a little bit. Maybe doing the things that you know you should be doing have suffered. And ultimately, it has to manifest somewhere. And always, it's going to manifest in the way your body looks. So then comes the next layer. The confidence starts to go. You won't take your shirt off at the pool. It goes down the line. And those are the things that I unwind when I start talking to a guy and I determine what it is that's causing them to not be successful in all of the other fitness programs that they tried prior to running into me.
So how is discipline in your perspective? Is that something that is, how big of a deal is discipline to you? Because I find, just have discipline and you're good to go. Well, it's really difficult to have discipline sometimes because it's got to be a lifestyle, so can you expand on that? I mean, is it just discipline in itself, or, I mean, because you got to eat right. You got to be a good husband. You got to have all these good things, but really does it boil down to discipline? I mean,
it does for some people and not for others, but we all have discipline. We had talked about the homeless situation here in Sacramento. It takes discipline to stay out on those streets in the blowing wind that you had yesterday, in the rain. They might not have anywhere else to go, but it still takes discipline to write a sign and hold it up on a street corner. Like, we just choose to apply discipline in different areas of our life. So if we can reframe things and refocus our energy in directions that become important by determining our why and understanding what really is important at the end of the day, there's a saying running around now, health is wealth, right?
Yep.
So it truly is. And I guess people are probably asking, well, Clark, if you're so healthy, how did you end up getting cancer? Well, I just was one in 7, you know what I mean? And my particular type of cancer is prostate cancer. It's manageable. It's doable. I'm not dying from it. I have time to deal with it. And that's my mission, is to tell men, go out and get your PSA checked and all that sort of thing. But it's discipline for me to do what I need to do. So yeah, discipline is part of it, but I think above that, it's commitment. If we understand the difference between commitment and discipline, like,
they work together.
You're committed to your wife. I'm committed to my wife. Maybe I'm not disciplined all the time to do the things that I need to do, but that commitment, which is important to me, which is the 5th piece of my 5 principles, the integrity part, is pretty vital.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of stuff out there to get you off track.
Yeah.
You're a good-looking guy.
So, talk about identity. How important it is to identify yourself as that person that is, disciplined, good health. How important is identifying those things and actually projecting that out in life, if that makes any sense? You want to identify yourself as the non-smoker. What I find in my life is, if I don't identify that I am no longer a smoker or no longer a drinker, until I change that, I'm still a smoker, I'm still a drinker, I'm still a whatever it is that I have the problems with. And I got to change my identity.
Yeah.
That
goes back to the self-talk thing.
Right.
When Tiger Woods is standing over that putt, he's a champion. He's a champion everywhere he goes. Every room that I walk into, I'm the baddest dude in that room. Whether not in a physical sense, but I know that people are paying attention to me when I walk in. It's impossible not to. Mm-hmm. That's the attitude that I walk in with. Not that I'm better and you're worse. I know the value that I bring. I know the work, I know the discipline, I know the commitment, I know the consistency that I've done to look the way I look, to have the mindset that I have, to treat people like Andrew the way I did on the plane. I listened to him. I was interested in him. So I identify as someone who cares. And it's not me convincing myself. It's me knowing that this is the beauty of the life that I get to live. So that goes back to what we had talked about at the beginning. My why is I get to operate this body on this planet, engaging with you and Matthew and being here in this moment, and having people recognize me, and not like I'm famous, recognize me in my presence and my energy and affect them in a positive way. I know for a fact that there were 2 flight attendants on that airplane that were looking at me that will think about me in the future and go to the gym because I didn't even say a word to them. I just showed up in the room. That's my identity.
It's a confidence that you have when you walk in the room.
And again, I'm no better, you're no worse. It's not like that at all.
Yes.
I know the value.
You've done the work.
Yeah, I love me some me. Believe it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you've done the work to have that confidence exude from you. And when we first met, I could feel it. When we shook hands, it's like, oh man, but you put in the work, and I think most people sometimes don't want to put in that work, and it's tough,
Or they're afraid what other people are going to think of them.
Failure. Talk about failure. Talk
Man,
about
I failed
failing.
at so many things
We were just
in my
talking about
life.
that before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
I won't say what it was, but I mean, we were talking about failure and how important it is to probably fail. You won't do that again,
Yeah.
right? But what are some of the lessons you've learned from failure?
Right. And it's even reframing the word failure to I've learned like it's just something that I was meant to go through, maybe money that I lost in a business deal or any of a multitude of different things that if we reframe what it was put in our life for, because I brought it all on myself. Like everything that I've experienced in my life, including cancer, I brought it on me. I'm responsible for it 100%. So it's up to me to get out of it now. And that's what I do. So I don't look at things as failures. I look at them as, hey man,
It's like a stepping stone.
it's a stepping stone. It's another layer
Right.
in my life. And it's like, man, I can learn from that. So now my business prowess is so much better than what it was prior to that last deal that we had talked about, where I learned a very expensive mistake.
Where it's a platform to where to begin from, right?
Yeah.
So you don't go below that platform. You've already been there, right? So you know where to step, you know how to begin and move forward. So I think that failure is just a good opportunity to look back, but use it as a springboard,
Yeah.
right?
Very expensive lesson. I said very expensive mistake. That bugged me for that whole time.
Talk about one of the things you talk about is about body fat killing men, and you talk about. Can you explain the difference between subcutaneous fat and visceral fat, and why those two are? What's the difference between the two?
Yeah. Well, visceral fat is the stuff you don't see that's surrounding your organs, which is probably the most dangerous fat. But having, fat, the subcutaneous, the right under the skin that is there, and the blubber that's hanging over the waist and all that sort of stuff, it's equally as damaging because collectively all of these things add together. It's not, so getting fit isn't just about getting on the treadmill. It's combining the mindset, meals, movement, community, integrity. So it's all of these things converging to one outcome, and all of the other things converging to create the outcome of being out of shape and being a non-functional human that wouldn't get away from a zombie apocalypse. So we have this tendency to get a myopic focus on things and go, this is the one thing. People focus too much on fat and not enough on muscle. I heard a woman on Instagram say, and I don't want to pretend like I came up with this, but it was genius. We're not over fat, we're under muscled. If we focused on building muscle as opposed to losing fat, because focusing on losing fat, obviously we ain't winning the war because we live in the fattest country on the planet. So why not focus on building muscle, lifting weights, men and women? And then how do you get stronger? How do you build more muscle? Well, you eat more protein. So now the eating part kind of layers itself in there just by nature of what it is that you're trying to do. Women should want to pack muscle on their body. And they're not going to get all buff and all that sort of stuff. So if you're a lady and you're watching, don't worry. Men have like 18 times more testosterone than women. And looking a certain, like a bodybuilder is not that easy. But it's important for bone mass density and things like that to have muscle on our body to be highly functioning. You become more metabolically capable and just you're better off metabolically with more muscle on your body. Because you could lose weight and lose muscle while you're losing weight because you're afraid to lift weights because you're convinced you're going to get muscle bound or something.
What are the 5 things that you think most men can do to reduce body fat? The top 5
mindset,
things.
meals, movement, community, integrity. I prove it every single day. Every single day I prove it. I wake up to messages from men saying, thank you. I have messages on my phone. My phone's been blowing up on my side right now. And it's my coaching guys texting me a number in each of those 5 principles. Every day I wake up to numbers from 1 to 10. So if I were coaching you, I would tell you every morning, I need you to text me 5 numbers. That's all. I don't need to hear about your day. I don't want to hear anything. I don't care. Give me 5 numbers that reflect how you did the day before in mindset, meals, movement, community, and integrity. If they're at a 7 or above, no one's at a 10, myself included. So you're either a 7, 8, or a 9. If you're below a 7, then I intervene. I'm like, bro, why are you not involved in the community? Well, I didn't have time, this and that and the other. So then I coach you in that area. I get you up to a 7, and then we're done. And I move on. So those 5 things guaranteed will be what changes men, because I do it every day.
Um, Talk to me about water consumption. I think everyone has a little different take on water consumption.
I have the most genius way to consume water.
And
You
how
ready?
much water should we be drinking?
There you go.
I've heard body weight in ounces or half your body weight in ounces. What is the right amount of water we should be drinking?
Drink when you're thirsty. Done deal.
And what does that affect when you do? What are the biological effects of that? I mean,
Hydration. That's it. I mean, your body's going to tell you
yeah.
when you're hungry. Your body's going to tell you when you're thirsty. Your body's going to tell you when you're cold. Your body's going to tell you when you're hot. And it has all of these processes that are on a subconscious level that we never have to think about. That's when you go back to the why of, I get this body to operate. I don't have to think about any of this. Can I say shit?
Yeah.
I don't think about any of this shit at all. And it does it for me. And we abuse the hell out of it, but it still does it for me. And we continue to abuse it and it still does it. And then finally it says, okay, bro, I'm done. I'm going to throw in the towel too. And then all of these things start to happen. But you can unwind that by making one shift, and you can unwind it just like that. That's the beauty of the human body. So if that ain't a good enough why, I don't know what to tell anyone, man.
I mean, I've had friends talk to me about they're constipated. Their digestion's not working. Well, I ask them, are you drinking enough water? Oh no, I don't drink water during the day. I don't like water. I mean, water is just so important, right? And you've hit on this. And so you're just saying drink when you're thirsty.
I just think it's, I get tired of going to the gym and seeing these freaking bro jugs.
I see them all the time too.
Come on, man. It literally, you don't need to carry 5 gallons of water with you. You don't. There's water available. Now you need to drink good water. There's a difference in water. That's
I've heard hydrogen water is really good for you.
That's the new thing now, right?
Right. That's the whole new buzz.
Man, if I could drink out of a stream somewhere, that'd be the best possible water. Because I know, unless someone's pissing in it up ahead of me, but even then, my body is going to be okay. It's going to figure it out because I'm sure that's happened before. But having good water is important. And yeah, people are even kind of turning the conversation around hydration. Do we really need to be that hydrated? Or is it the water companies that are telling us we need? Who knows? That's why I say, bro, if you're thirsty, just drink some water.
All these things that really sleep has been, as I get older, sleep has been super tough for me. I go to bed, I listen to what, the gurus have to say, the fitness gurus. There's like, set a set schedule. So I do set a set schedule. I'm in bed by 9. But then I catch myself waking up at like 4 a.m. and I can't go back to bed. What are some of the hacks that you think are the best hacks to have for sleep? For a good solid 6 hours, 7 hours of sleep.
Yeah. Well, you just said it. Having a bedtime is something that most men don't. Like when you brought up sleep, I'm like, my favorite subject on the planet because I love to sleep. My favorite time of day is going to sleep. I go to bed at 8. Matter of fact, I went to bed last night at 7:30. I slept for 2 hours hard, deep, really good restorative sleep. I woke up. My son was just going to bed because he's staying at our house. And he came out to check on me. He's like, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm good. I slept for 2 hours. So while I was there awake, I didn't fight it. So when you fight it, like maybe your body's just saying, I'm awake. Maybe there's something for you to do at 4 a.m. when you woke up. I love the quote by Rumi, a 16th century poet. He said, the morning breeze has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. Maybe you weren't meant to go back to sleep at that time. Maybe there was something in that morning breeze that was waiting to be delivered to you. And that's the only time that you could hear it because you're not caught up in the business. You're not caught up in all of what goes on after 8 o'clock.
So I'm not crazy by thinking, well, maybe I should just get up and start working, or maybe I should get up and start exercising because I think I need that 8 hours of sleep. No. But what you're saying is good restorative sleep, even if it's 2 to 3 hours a night, is still much better than crappy sleep, 7 to 8 hours of crappy sleep.
If you feel refreshed when you wake up, then you are going to be fine. And I emphasized you because that's all that really matters. So if you're not feeling refreshed, then that's a different story. But if on that moment when you woke up at 4 a.m., if you only slept for 4 or 5 hours and you feel restored, that's what sleep is meant to do, get you ready for the next day. But I wouldn't recommend going to work right away. I would recommend taking that morning time, quiet time when no one else is around, and let that morning breeze tell you the secrets that it can tell you, because that's where I get a lot of my business ideas. That's where I get a lot of this internal work that I do, because there's no distractions. It's
Are you meditating in the morning?
no, I don't sit there and meditate. Sometimes I'll have a coffee and I'll turn on the Andy Griffith show, you know what I mean? And and go back and like remember less busy times in my life. And I think too often we get caught up with influencers' ways of us needing to live our life.
And I think I'm falling into that.
Yeah, don't do it, dude. Block some of these guys. Block them. Get them off your feed. You said it. Purging is good.
Right.
Purge some of the people on your feed if suddenly you're feeling like, oh, I'm not. Yeah. Bro, I'm not trying to be a 1%.
I'm not getting 8 hours of sleep, and I'm not drinking half my body weight in water. It's just all these different things. And I started to have anxiety because I'm not hitting the protocols. And then at the end of the day, I'm like full on anxiety, you know?
Yeah.
So,
if I'm causing stress on my feet, block me, man. You know, and I did it yesterday. We talked about some people, man, and I'm just like, it's not that I have anything against them. I just don't want that energy flowing at me because it's not vibrating with me. Good for them. They're cool. They got all kind of money, all kind of cars and all this, private jets here and there. I don't want it.
I think that's what we see.
I like Southwest Airlines. Shout out to Southwest. Give me some miles.
So I think what we see on these Instagram reels is like, hey, I'm doing this, and this is what's gotten me to point. This is what's gotten me to be rich or gotten me to be extraordinary in this particular thing that I do. But I have to sleep 8 hours. I have to get them out, you know. So
well, good for you.
I love,
you know?
Yeah, I love what you're saying. It's more just kind of living your life to what you are at the best that you can be, right? So I love that.
Yeah.
How important are vitamins? What's the most important vitamin you think there is out there?
The ones that you need. Here's the deal with vitamins. You go to a big box store. I was walking through Costco the other day. Literal wall of marketing. We talked about marketing. I love marketing. I'm fascinated by it. You know who wins in that sea of vitamins? The one with the best box. Because the little old lady or the ill-informed or misinformed person walking down that aisle, having seen a influencer saying, you need to get your vitamins in or whatever, they're walking down there. The brand that's going to win is the one that sticks out the most or the one that's the cheapest, which means it's crap. It's synthetic and it's not going to digest and you're going to poop it out and it's not going to be good. So here's what I will tell you in regards to that. It's the vitamins that you need. And the only way that you'll know that is by taking a blood test. And that blood test will show any nutrient gaps. And this is what I do to my guys. So if you joined my program and you joined on a VIP status, I would pay for a blood test for you with a guy that I know. And he would look at that and then create a customized vitamin blend based upon your lifestyle, again, because it's about you. So if you're lacking in B or you're lacking in D or you're excessive in any of those, they won't be added when the standard big box brand, a multivitamin is not going to work for a 17-year-old girl and a 70-year-old man. It's just not possible. And changing it from men's plus to women's, there's not that big of a difference in there. You need whole food, pre-digested vitamins that your body can assimilate, not synthetic made that are going to end up in the bottom of a porta potty.
That's what I was going to ask you, is how important is a multivitamin versus taking vitamins one-on-one? Like you actually take zinc by itself.
Well, that's a pain in the butt, right? You got 30. I'm doing that right now because of what I'm going through. But my doctor that I hired for that is now putting them in packs for me, where it was like you had all these different bottles. You can't travel with different bottles, and who wants to pack it all up? So the way I do it and the way it should be done is they're in little sachets that you could pull off however many days you're gone, the morning packs, the afternoon packs, the evening packs. They're all customized for you. You take them. They have to be the right kind. Like I said, whole food, pre-digested vitamins. You should take a...
How many times do you get a blood
digestive
test?
enzyme? I did one this morning before I came in.
Really?
Yeah, 4:30 this morning.
So you do your own blood tests?
Well, I went to the gym. So shout out to Bart Pitchula at US Specialty Labs. I have my own blood test now that I ship out to men to make sure they get their PSA check. So if you need to get your PSA check, get my blood test. So I have one panel that has 7 markers, cholesterol, testosterone free in total, liver enzymes, cortisol, a couple other ones. And then I have one for PSA only if they don't want all those other ones or can't afford it. But I did that because I understand the importance of blood. Because again, me just telling you to get on the treadmill and eat whitefish and asparagus isn't the remedy for what you might need. Because by the time you hit 50, there's something called andropause. It's just like menopause. Men have a hormonal change no different than women. And the only way I'm going to know that is by your blood. So I look at it and we see whatever, like TRT is a big thing now. For the record, I'm not on any TRT. We can get into that. I don't need it. I don't do it. I recommend that people don't do it until they have lifestyle intervention. But anyway, so all of these markers help me determine what it is that you should be doing specifically, because now I know more data on you. Like I'm only as good as the data that I have on you.
It's so fascinating. So how many times a year or per month do you do a blood test?
So I do mine every week now to check my PSA, because my treatment right now is non-standard of care. Like I'm not getting radiation. I'm not doing chemo. I'm not doing androgen deprivation. I'm not getting surgery. I'm finding out the reasons I got cancer, because cancer is a symptom.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff. So we determined there's a lot of chemicals in my body because of exposure. There's bacteria that we're getting rid of. That's part of a lot of the pills that I'm taking to get rid of the bacteria in my gut. So every week I check my PSA to make sure there's not what's called PSA velocity. I'm waiting to hear my numbers now. I didn't check it before. I just didn't want to get distracted with that. But yeah, having blood. So to answer the question I think you're going to ask is, how often should a regular guy who doesn't have what I have? Every 6 months. Because things can change fast. And with prostate cancer, it's asymptomatic. You don't know you have it. It's not like your bones hurt unless it's metastatic, which fortunately mine's not, meaning it's spread throughout the body. But yeah, every 6 months, and guys will not do it because they're busy. Let me give you a really quick example. My best friend back in Ohio, Rich King, had a triple bypass surgery. He just went in and had his blood tested because he wanted to look at his testosterone because he was having some of the effects of that. And he said, "Do you believe at 60 years old, they did not check my PSA?" And I'm like, that doctor's stupid. They should be talked to, and they need to understand that if you're running blood anyway, I know what it takes. I'm in that lab at US Specialty Labs. I'm in there with Bart. He's taught me how to run these machines. I know how simple it is. I know the science behind it now. I know what it takes. You don't need vials of blood. You need literally 6 drops, 12 drops to get every test that a man needs. So this idea that insurance won't cover it, or your doctor said you don't need it, or you don't fit into the criteria yet, push back. That's BS. You're in control of your health. You need to take control.
So your program offers blood tests.
Yes.
That's fantastic, I think, for men, for the markers that men actually need to take a look at, especially as we age. Yep. Talk to me about synthetics, TRT.
Yep.
Men at 50 thinking they need to supplement with testosterone and these types of things that I hear all the time. And I think, man, you could probably, this is just bad news for you. You're going to kill your endocrine system, basically. Yeah.
It's a slippery slope. Most often when you get started on TRT, it's a lifelong endeavor, because when or if you come off, there's a down period that will happen. A lot of guys that come to me say, "Clark, I want to get off," or "Clark, I don't want to go on." I'm not against it. Okay. That's the thing that I want people to understand, because online people troll me all the time saying, "Why are you so against TRT?" I'm not. First and foremost, I'm not on it. That's another thing that I want to make, because people refuse to believe that I can look the way I look without being on TRT. It's just this thing that all these idiots say because they're just misinformed. I've been doing this my entire life. But anyway, I'm surprised that there's not a strip, like in this strip little deal that we're in, that there's not some sort of clinic right here that's offering TRT, because it's a big money grab right now, because men are lazy. Men want to go get a shot. They heard, like, men are lazy with respect to that. Men, and I clearly said earlier that men aren't lazy, and that's the reason they got themselves into the situation they're in, right? So I want to make that distinction. But when they hear their buddy say, dude, I went to this clinic, or my endocrinologist gave me testosterone, whether it's a shot, a patch, a cream, or a pellet. I just lost 30 pounds overnight, bro. That other guy, remember I keep saying you. Well, maybe it worked for him. That doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And maybe he's doing lifestyle intervention that he didn't tell you about, right? Maybe he cleaned up his diet. Maybe he's going to the gym. Maybe he mindset, meals, movement, community, integrity. Maybe he's doing those things.
Right.
But you go there expecting to take a shot or rub on some cream to have your life instantly change. It doesn't work like that. It's not a miracle at all. It's definitely something that people need. There are more people now that have lower testosterone levels because of the world that we live in. It's a cesspool. We're overloaded with toxins, emotional stress, environmental stress, and all of this sort of stuff. So anyway, I could continue down this path forever because that's the stance that I've taken. And here's the irony in it all. I've taken the stance online about boosting testosterone levels naturally. Now I'm faced with this diagnosis, and what feeds, it doesn't give you cancer, but testosterone feeds prostate cancer. So I am now facing one of my options for standard of care treatment being hormone deprivation therapy.
Meaning, what does that mean?
Take my testosterone to zero. Have me go through menopause, hot flashes, tired all the time, weight gain, mood swings, no differently than a woman going through menopause.
And that's one of the treatments for prostate cancer?
It started in 1941. It's medical castration. They used to cut your nuts off back then, but now they do it medically. They do it with Lupron.
So they almost like kind of restart the system, basically. Is that
No, they just strip you down to zero, man. And so it's the same thing. So if I wanted to transition to be a woman, they would give me Lupron shots. And it's the same thing they want to give me right now. I told my doctor, I told him. And now it's out there on the streets. All these doctors know because it's a very nepotistic world, this oncology world.
Yeah.
And they know, like, don't offer Clark hormone deprivation. It's just not quality of life for me that I want. And then everybody else said, well, what about your family? What if you die? This and that and the other thing. Well,
yeah.
Oh, well.
What do you think about treating some of your health issues with some like biohacks, basically like cold plunges and saunas and red light? What do you
I got it all.
You got it all.
Have you ever seen my reels at my house? I've got a gym that's like a commercial gym.
Talk to us about the benefits of actually doing a cold plunge.
So a cold plunge is just, for me, the benefits of doing a cold plunge simply is just doing stuff that you don't want to do. Like, it sucks getting into that cold water. It's never fun. It never gets easy. So you're just disciplining yourself to do things, right? And I'll admit that I have not done it recently. I drained my cold plunge because my pool is cold enough. So I'll jump into my pool and I come up and I do the same thing every time. I make this noise, and it's the same noise I make when I go to bed. It's just this joy scream. And when I get in bed, I just, I scream, and everyone kind of mocks me now in my house because I just love going to my bed. And getting in that water, I have that same exhilaration, but diving into it literally sucks. So that, to me, I don't know about, cold protein synthesis and all that sort of stuff. Man, I don't pretend to know it. I just like I don't want to do this. I'm going to do it. So I have I have a dry sauna with infrared and red light. I have a steam. I have the cold plunge. I have a hot tub. I have the pool. I have the gym. I have an EWAT system, exercise with oxygen. I do all of those different things. I do PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field training. I sit on basically electricity, and it shocks my prostate. And so all of these hacks I'm applying to see if I can keep my PSA at the same number it's at, and ideally lower it. So that would give me an indication of, okay, what I'm doing is working, the PSA number. If it gets lower, when it gets lower, as it gets lower, I don't need to go to these other extreme measures like, androgen deprivation and surgery and radiation and all that stuff. But if I have to, I will, right? Like, if that becomes a thing that's necessary, then I'm doing my homework. So this whole process, I'm documenting. So
you're not naive to this.
Oh, no.
Basically.
Standard of care is important. Like, I thank God for I love my urologist. He's great. I love all of these radio oncologists that I've met. They're all great people, very smart.
Right.
But the bottom line is when you're in a situation like this, all you're doing is sitting through a sales pitch. Every time you go to one of these doctors, you're just sitting in a sales pitch.
Have you, not to knock doctors, but have you found that most are not knowledgeable in sports nutrition or just being healthy?
Well,
Or
they all
holistic
will
medicine?
admit, they will all admit that they take no nutrition courses in college, maybe 1% of the time, if
Physiology.
that much, that they're in there. That's not what they do. They specialize, right? So these guys that do proton therapy specialize in proton therapy. There's photon therapy. It's a very similar thing, but they don't do it. So they're going to sell you on protons. The surgeon's going to sell you on surgery.
Right.
So they stay in their lane. I know more about my prostate cancer than my urologist does, than any of the doctors that I'm working with know about it, because I'm in it. You know what I mean? They work with people in the standard of care model, 7 minutes.
And then it's more of a generalized kind of.
It's like, hey, if my urologist is the surgeon, and he's going to say, man, we need to cut that thing out, because he's got lights and bills and kids and colleges, and it's a business like anything else. And he cares. He wants the best for me. I'm not saying that he's taking profit over a personal, but that's all he knows. He's not going to say, yeah, you should go and see my buddy instead. Hell no, man.
Let's talk about your campaign, Check It Like a Man. Talk to us about that. I know we talking a lot about prostate cancer, but what is this whole, advocating you're doing? And I realize that it's what your campaign is called, Check It Like a Man.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What is that?
So Check It Like a Man is my 501c3. It's a nonprofit organization that when I got this diagnosis, I thought, okay, I need to do something about this. And I called a mentor of mine, Roger Bates, who owns Assault Fitness, the Assault air bikes that they do. And shout out to Roger. Thank you, brother, for encouraging me to create a nonprofit so I could raise money to create awareness. Because really, when you think about prostate cancer, there's not that one foundation that sticks out like the Susan G. Komen breast cancer thing, right? My plan is to make this be the foundation that is synonymous with prostate cancer. I'm the perfect guy for this,
Right.
literally. I know it for a fact. And I'm not saying I'm some scapegoat, but I know that I've been pulled aside for this reason because I already have the platform, right? I already have guys coming to me wanting help with fitness. And I know now I have a lot more experience than I ever did before, and I've closed the gap. So this whole foundation and all the money is raised to do stuff like this. My job now is to be on the road, to be on podcasts. Anyone wants me on your podcast, I'll be there anytime, anywhere. I am creating a documentary about this journey. I am doing every possible thing, this blood test kit. I'm building websites now for it. I just want to create a platform where men understand.
They feel comfortable.
They got to feel comfortable, and they can't feel like they need to do something right away. And that's the problem. I'm really seeing a lot of not misdiagnosis, but overreacting to prostate cancer that is manageable and could be handled by what's referred to as active surveillance. Some people are saying, well, I'm just going to go get this cut out. And it's like, no, this is not even cancer. But guys don't think that, because they get this diagnosis, then instantly their mind goes, the attitude shifts, they go below that line, and it becomes something that they think they need to take care of right away,
One more question for you. And the question is, how important is gut health in a man's life, in a woman's life, in human life? We're finding out that gut health is so important now.
Yeah. So gut health is the number one thing we're focused on. So what I did when I got my diagnosis was a complete diagnostic of me. I peed, pooped, spit, and bled into more containers than I ever thought I would. And it's over and over and over again. So what we're looking for are heavy metals, parasites, chemical exposure, and all of these different things. And what we determined was the most nefarious character in all of those things was gut bacteria. So I got on a very detailed regimen of supplements to deal with that gut health, because that's where we feel.
Is it prebiotics?
Well, there's prebiotics, probiotics, fiber, and all sorts of different things that are added into this concoction of supplements that I've been taking consistently for a while now to get rid of that bacteria in my gut that didn't need to be there. Like, it was found in amounts that were too high.
Explain,
so we're getting
explain
them
to
back.
people good bacteria and bad bacteria.
Well, there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. It's just your body is going to either get out of balance, right? In that microbiome that's in there because of the exposures that we have in the world, not just environmental exposure, but stress, like emotional stress will affect
Cortisol.
Yeah, cortisol and just gut health in general, because you don't digest. If you don't digest, you die. Right? So that's why I had mentioned a digestive enzyme is important. But with respect to gut health, right now, your gut is referred to as your second brain. They communicate very closely. So if there's an imbalance in here, no differently than an imbalance of hormones, it's things are going to be off, and it has to manifest somewhere somehow. I'm no expert in this gut health world, but I do know that that's the first area that we attacked in me. So now what we do is, after we did this regimen of supplements, we're going to look at what it's done with regards to the next poop test or pee test, whatever it is that we found that in. We're going to see what the difference is. And then we can move on to the next thing, the chemical exposure that I've had that was the next in line. So it's really important to do the diagnostic when you get a diagnosis that is something that could be detrimental. I'm trying to think all these D things to throw in there. But
so the mind gut health is just extremely important. Well, I thank you, Clark, for coming today. I really do. I really appreciate you coming. Where can people find you? Name out some of your social media platforms, and where can people actually go to get that test, that prostate test, and actually the blood test, and some of the things that you've talked about today?
Yeah. So my Instagram is @Clark Bartram. That's where I put a lot of my stuff. TikTok, the real Clark Bartram. The foundation is really the most important thing for me. It's checkititlikeaman.org. And we're right now building checkititlikeaman.com, which is going to be the website that has all of the videos of me going to my doctor, interviewing various radio oncologists and surgeons and different experts in the field of oncology and prostate cancer. I've snuck my phone into appointments. I had a DRE on camera, and the doctor didn't even know it while he was sticking his finger in my butt. This is the lengths that I'm going to give men an inside look at something that they would otherwise not really get this sort of look at, because all they're seeing is standard of care and what's being directed at them. Even with people who have the best intentions in mind, you get overwhelmed with all of this information, a lot of it anecdotal, that isn't going to serve you till you find out what you need to do specifically. And that's where I want to fit into this process. I want men to come to me, which they have. So many men have learned that they have BPH or prostatitis. Some have learned that they have prostate cancer. One of them found out that he had pancreatic cancer. Matter of fact, the guy that's running my foundation. So the effect of my goal in exposing men to this message is really already starting to take effect. And I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to be here. Thank you for flying me up. This is what I am called to do. It's my purpose. And I just want to spread this message as much as I can. Listen, brother, if you have not had your blood work done and had your PSA checked, go get it done today. If you need a test kit, just go to Clark Bartram Systems. You can order it there, and we'll ship it out to you, and I'll watch the process the whole way through.